For more than 100 years, fighting cancer has felt like this brutal, all-out war on the body, a real scorched earth campaign. But what if we could change the game completely? What if instead of a siege, we could pull off a swift surgical strike? Well, a brand new class of weapons is about to do just that. They're incredibly small, incredibly precise, and we're talking about metallic nanodots.
And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? Our traditional treatments, things like chemotherapy and radiation, they're powerful, for sure, but they're not smart. They basically just attack any cell that's dividing quickly. And yeah, that includes cancer, but it also includes a ton of our own healthy cells. It is the absolute definition of collateral damage.
So what you're seeing here is this huge shift in strategy. It's a total game changer. We're moving away from that brute force approach, the one that just floods your whole system, and we're moving towards a genuine precision strike. Instead of being completely indiscriminate, this new method is targeted. And here's the really cool part. It's activatable. That means we can literally switch it on only where it's needed, which is how it spares all that healthy tissue.
And that term, collateral damage, it's not just some abstract clinical phrase, right? It's what patients actually live through. It's the debilitating side effects. That attack on all rapidly dividing cells, that's exactly why people lose their hair. It's damage to the hair follicles. It's why their immune system gets hammered, that's the bone marrow. And the awful nausea, that's the treatment destroying the lining of the gut.
Okay, but now, let's meet the hero of this story. This is the new precision weapon in the fight against cancer, the metallic nanodot. And these aren't just random particles. They're specifically engineered to hunt down and destroy cancer cells with a kind of accuracy we've honestly only ever dreamed of until now.
So, you're probably wondering, what exactly are these things? Well, think of them as tiny, atomic-scale clusters of metals you already know, like gold, silver, or platinum. And when I say tiny, I mean unbelievably small. We're talking smaller than 5 nanometers. Some of these nanodots are made up of just a few hundred atoms. To give you some perspective on that, a single human hair is about 80,000 nanometers wide, just mind-bogglingly small.
And here's where the science gets really, really cool. At this nanoscale, the rules of physics actually start to change. Things behave differently. Take gold, for example. The gold in a wedding ring is famous for being inert. It doesn't react with anything. But when you shrink that same gold down to just a few dozen atoms, it suddenly becomes this super powerful catalyst. And it's that totally new behavior that we can harness for therapy.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how in the world do these tiny particles actually find the enemy? How do they navigate the massive, complex landscape of the human body with such accuracy? Well, the answer is a pretty brilliant, multi-step process. It's this really clever 3-part strategy. So first up is passive accumulation. See, tumors tend to have really leaky, badly built blood vessels. The nanodots are so small they can literally just slip through the cracks and accumulate inside the tumor. That's called the EPR effect. Okay, step 2, active targeting. We can actually attach molecular keys onto the nanodots. These keys are designed to fit perfectly into specific locks that you only find on the surface of cancer cells. And third, and this is absolutely crucial for safety, the smallest of these dots get cleared out super fast by the kidneys, so they don't just build up and cause problems in healthy organs.
And how well does this targeting work? The results are just staggering. In some of the preclinical studies, get this, researchers found 50 times more nanodots packed into the tumor tissue compared to the healthy tissue right next to it. A 50-to-1 ratio. That is just an incredible, incredible level of precision.
All right, so our tiny assassins have reached their target. They've snuck into the tumor. The big question now is, how do they actually launch the attack? Well, it turns out there are a few different and incredibly clever ways they get the job done.
So the first method is something called photothermal therapy, or PTT. Here's how it works. Scientists shine a special kind of light, near-infrared light, which can actually pass through skin and tissue right onto the tumor. The nanodots that are waiting inside absorb that light like tiny sponges and then convert it into intense, focused heat. They literally cook the cancer cells from the inside out, while the healthy tissue around them barely even gets warm.
And we're not talking about just a gentle warming here. This is a precise, targeted destruction. The best way to think about it is like having a microscopic, light-directed soldering iron that's cauterizing the tumor one cell at a time from the inside, all without ever touching the healthy stuff nearby.
The second weapon in their arsenal is maybe even more subtle. Instead of using heat, we can trigger the nanodots with light or even with low-dose X-rays to turn them into tiny little factories. And what do these factories produce? They start churning out these highly toxic molecules called reactive oxygen species, or ROS for short. You can think of them as molecular grenades that just rupture and destroy the cancer cells from the inside.
It's basically a form of biochemical sabotage. What's really fascinating is that a lot of cancer cells are already living in a state of high stress, so the nanodots just give them a little nudge. They generate just enough of that extra toxic ROS to push the cancer cells right over the edge into self-destruction. It's a vulnerability that healthy cells just don't have.
And then there's a method called pherolysis, which might be the most elegant of all. With this one, you use special iron oxide nanodots that don't even need an external trigger like light or X-rays. Nope, they're activated by the tumor's own unique environment, which is usually more acidic. They basically use the cancer's own biology against it, switching themselves on and starting the attack automatically. So smart.
Okay, so does any of this actually work in the real world? Well, the preclinical evidence is incredibly compelling. Let's start with one of the absolute toughest cancers to treat, triple-negative breast cancer.
Check this out. In one major study, they combined these platinum nanodots with just a single low-dose X-ray treatment, the same kind of dose used in clinics every single day. And the result? A whopping 80% of the tumors in the mice completely disappeared, vanished, and they saw no side effects. None.
And it's not just breast cancer. The results are just as impressive when you look at another notoriously deadly disease, pancreatic cancer. In this case, researchers used light-activated silver nanodots on tumors that were grown from actual human patients. And after just 2 quick 5-minute sessions with the light, 70% of those tumors were completely wiped out. And at the same time, the healthy organs right next to them were perfectly fine. I mean, those are just spectacular results.
So the evidence from the lab is pretty overwhelming, right? But now comes the most important question of all. How do we get this amazing technology out of the lab and into real-life clinics to the patients who desperately need it? And we have to be realistic here. Moving from the lab to the clinic is a huge leap, and there are definitely hurdles. First, we need really thorough long-term safety and toxicity studies. We also have to figure out how to manufacture these incredibly complex particles perfectly every single time on a massive scale. And of course, the regulatory agencies need to create brand new pathways to approve what is a totally new kind of therapy.
But I want to be super clear, this is not science fiction. This is happening right now. The very first clinical trials in humans are starting as we speak for some of the toughest cancers out there. We're talking glioblastoma, head and neck cancers, ovarian cancer. And we should start seeing the first results from these human trials around late 2026. It's really happening. So what's the ultimate goal here? What's the dream? It's a future where a patient can just come in for an outpatient procedure. They get a simple injection. A few hours go by, they get a quick pulse of light or a single low dose of radiation, and they go home for dinner, just like that. The nanodots do all the work, and the patient is free from all those awful, debilitating side effects that have defined cancer treatment for the last 100 years.
And all of this brings us to a really profound question. If we can kill cancer with this kind of precision, instead of just brute force, could these tiny assassins make the trauma of cancer treatment just a historical footnote? For millions of patients and their families, that difference isn't just a small thing. It's everything.